Sorry. In Osmosis, she's about, I don't know, 5 and gets a little older by the end of the poem. Osmosis. Cigarette smoke wove into my curls, straight through, 100% Madras from India, breathed blue-tinged, dizzy blue through every alveolus. As my mother lurched the car down Wisconsin Ave, jamming gas and brake pedals, tilting, sliding me from the rearview mirror to the carpet, kneeling as smoke clouded out the roll-down window. Has every turbid day inhabited me singly, molecule by skin cell, till it dwelt within me, absorbed like smoke, like rain, like falling snow, like sweat dampening the saddle, the day 2 friends and I rode white fields in silence, hair and manes whipping sideways, but keeping our seats, everything present, seeping into me, even as we galloped. As I said, a lot of this book is about being contained and being released from containment. And this particular poem involves, or came from this wonderful book called The Mary Frances Sewing Book, which my aunt gave me. I think it was published in 1919 or something. It's got patterns for dolls' clothes, and it's got all the sewing tools are animated. So there's pencil and scissor shears and a tomato patch pin. It's a riot. Anyway, hemmed in. I knew my uncle and his wife slept separately. Each ate a single boiled egg, scraped dry with silver cutlery, their toast. I prayed my Gentile aunt would guide me through her Mary Frances sewing book, where scissors shears has shiny legs that did not snip by accident, where pencils led drew garden frocks, a wedding dress for dolls, patterns included. I wore dark blue cardigans and pleated skirts. The new elastic garter belt retracted every step. Yet my flesh, first budding, bloomed. Her Sunday school Jesus spread chaste hands over lamb-flocked fields where parish sheep with lowered heads ate not the radiant grass. In this next one, she's 9 and humiliated and resisting that. Way too bold. My turquoise swimsuit exposed white thighs spoke shame before I spoke. At 9, I said, I bet I'll swim the whole lake. It's only a mile. My father took the bet, $1.50, said he'd row by me. With worn out oars, he creaked. My own arms cleaved the green as silently as fish. Halfway across Lake George, I plunged under in full stroke, out of sight at last, unmeasured triumph. This next one is called Thin Ice. And in fact, when I was growing up, U-Line Arena on U Street in Washington, it was a basketball arena, and they put ice on it for ice skating on Sundays. This also includes a chamois, the things that the cloth that people use to wipe off the blades. It's actually from an animal called a chamois, really sweet, shy little creature. And you wouldn't maybe know it, but this poem and a bunch of them in the book also deal with white privilege. Thin ice. Tin cases for our white ice skates. Frayed yellow chamois to wipe the blades. Ignorance of the animal whose flayed skin. Beige tights, the color of skin, ours. Not exactly pink, which was ballerinas. Tiny pleated skirts to flare when we twirled, so we twirled. Uline Arena's basketball court beneath the ice rink. Organ music piping stale odors. Girls' left arms extended, right crooked behind where the boys held them in synchrony on thin ice over guard lines. Black sky of the arena with spotlights, almost enough space to dispel, almost enough echo to pretend no one saw me glide into sound. I thought darkness was freedom. "2 a.m. at 14. The just past full moon elicits wild dogs' siren keening, echoing between massive dark mountains, hours past bedtime as I tiptoe into larger dark. Possibility thickens the clouds to condensation just short of pouring. My hands pause on the porch railing, barefoot reaching the first step. This one's called, I don't know if that comes off front or backwards on the screen, but if you ever watch the show that comes from, you recognize it. 3 slashes of sound. The Z-tip flexi sword whipped, makeshift black half mask, his body hidden, hands in gauntlets, but Zorro's mouth, bared, succulent, lured us. His cape hitched, silky at his smooth throat, too white skin, the black stallion imagined, rearing, pretending not to feel, his hips riding our bodies. Kama Sutra. Not by accident does the thigh hitch high over thigh to dangle a lean shank, or warm feet think to curve on a step's sharp stone. See, there is no zone, not possibly urgent, no tilted neck, no knee not entreating, no palm, flesh-faced, not open to stroke, to crave. But we women fast forget we once didn't know our breasts could crowd our dress. Our precious islands raised from a sophomoric sea, the praise of sudden boys backing away and watching. They seem so artificial. Then in no time part of artifice, we bear smugly our proud prows. And skipping way forward in her life. I didn't want to believe. I sought for too many years to levitate, elevate myself. I'd practice bicycling ahead, sweaty with ambition to summit his expectations. He was a rock I slammed against when I tried to say only what would crevice his logic. I became fog, draping granite, molding myself in silence, droplet after droplet into foregone. I didn't want to believe I could hear myself telling myself until one night it snowed. I strode out into crisp and clicked. And the last one I'm going to read is called Hear the Wind. The first month after I leave, already I hardly remember him, only the blue. All those years I pumped my own steady wings and flew only to the overhanging eaves. All those slanted dawns I woke to a mirror, my eyes shut. Now I dream in the dark, wide-eyed to every wind that carries me. Thank you very much, little squares with names. I have the pleasure of introducing Catherine Arnold, who I just met on Zoom, but whose wonderful book, Receipt for Lost Words, I chose in the Maysart in New Hampshire Poetry Contest because it's extraordinary. You'll see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. It's been an absolute pleasure to publish this first book with Bowen, and very exciting for me to have it out in the world. So I won't say much before I start reading, but what really drove me to write this book was an attempt to try to understand my daughter Stella's slow, mysterious loss of speech. I set out to explore it and try to come to terms with it, which of course is not really possible. So I'm going to start with the first poem. It is a longer poem, but it provides the context for everything that follows. The terms of silence. The words don't come from the mouth. They come from the fingers, fingers gripping the consonants before she lets them go. Kneeling over the book, rocking, syllable by syllable, the words bloom, so that I think of a rose bush planted in the ordinary room. She has memorized them all. Take the books away, they say. She doesn't understand the words. The Little House by Virginia Lee Burton. In the brightening of words, she does not see me. The little house shall never be sold for gold or silver. I watch her again, crouching in the middle of the room, all around her, the press and busy thunder, the abducting current of the world. Along came a steam shovel and it dug a road through the hill. The words cling to her fingers and she shakes them. Then some trucks with tar and sand. She is 2 years old. For months after the diagnosis, after the books are hidden, the words persist. Walls of perfect text suspended, trembling slightly under the exertions of her breath. Sometimes I thrust my hand in quickly, trying to touch the words, to watch them stir. Day followed day, each one a little different from the one before. Her fingers snap. She does not see me, only the incursion of the hand. Year followed year, and the apple trees grew old. And then the flawless walls of script began to lose their sharp and resolution, so that the pages from one book are placed inside the pages from another. Then the pages from all the books are shuffled, and we fall from book to book, a little of our certainty removed. Now it's not so quiet and peaceful at night, and beneath my skirt is a nose, and a nice little monkey, he thought, and a quiet old lady whispering hush. The pages are burnished, shine cut, spliced together, tossing them into the lighted center of the room, stabbing them home. On the big ship, things began to happen. Months pass. Still the books are hidden. The scraps of text, of memory, grow shorter. After a good meal and a pipe, George felt very tired. She does not use words. She does not slot them into place. Each word is discovered. Each word is found, struck, original and hot. George had telephoned the fire station. I observe, pushing the angles of my sorry head, but I do no more than dispatch a few cold thoughts into the furnace of the room. It looked easy, but oh, what happened? First this, and then this. Spinning in the center, conjuring the words about her. The man went away, ding-a-ling-a-ling. The skirt is blazing, airborne. Months pass, and then there are only single words. She is 3 now, and still she does not see me. The words begin to disappear from the day. I hear them at night. They're coming slow and urgent. Apple trees, moon, ship, hush, ding-a-ling. I hear them on the monitor. Engine, tired, monkey, scarf. She will not speak unless she is alone. Only the direction of the word remains, fleeing across the blankets in the dark. Months pass. When occasionally a word appears, it takes on the significance of a lunar eclipse. And then there are no more words at all. Months pass. Now she is 4. Everything is bleeding away. After the rose bush, the tenting walls, the fire skirt, there is nothing. No words coming from the mouth, no words coming from the hands. I am about to learn the terms of silence. And the next poem is much shorter, and it's the next poem in the book too. It's called The Waiting Room. The social worker cannot arrive at our names. Mom, 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 she calls, mothers in the waiting chairs. Mom seems a little upset. She is referring to all of us, of course. We have grown conspicuously similar. I vowed it wouldn't happen to me. I vowed I would escape it. The closed face, the dull eyes, the evacuated body. But it's begun, the process. I am slipping. Each of us is baffled. Each of us knows why she isn't here. The body changes, loses its extremities. Who needs arms to wave or legs to dance? We need only the sort of body that can wait. I am watching the officials, cool, impervious creatures, reminding me of the angels in old paintings, beings who exist to witness, who come down to close the inefficient scenes. Mom, 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 the angels move the beads across, watching, waiting, combing our hesitations into their cold hair. If you planted these creatures, they would not grow. Their lean feet cannot touch the soil. They stand in for all officials, for angels and spies, for the triumphs of the resolute, unkind will, for the avoidance of complication. And there, before them, lands the mess of another human soul. And now I'm going to read something from part 2, and this is the section which is in the voice of Stella. And I'll read the first one is, if I remember correctly, the first poem that I wrote of the book. After I saw my daughter Stella on a horse, I was with my husband and we were both I rode behind, on the horse holding Stella, and she was so happy, so euphoric. So I wanted to record that in a poem. Horse. My feet land on the ground unsteadily, so that each step unsettles me. Even the central notion of my spine forgets itself. Before I mount, I am aware of the light. Before I mount, I try to take it in, the great warm compass of the animal, sweet fermenting center. It is against the partial collapsing staggers of the light, the only forthright thing, the whole dark shape, a solid and an opening. Or should I start here? Mama lifts me high, through the light, higher still, then places me in front of her, so that I inhale her with the coil of the animal together. I rest against her. The animal against me, pressing my legs to the breathing hide. The commotion has receded. The sun lies down in my warm and necessary flesh. And then we begin to move. Mama's arms around me, crossing, bracing. I feel my body, and it is whole. I am arrested, blinking in this new sensation. I let out a small starting sound of recognition. And when the horse moves forward in the first instant, I find that I am already accustomed. The rising, stirring, falling back into the original. I can recognize the heat of the sun, the leaves gliding by, my smoothing face. It is all as I assumed it would be. I have assumed it all. There is a woman walking beside the animal, pleasant voice, syllables washing in, hair swaying in the ease of the sun. He is there too. Running alongside, I hear his voice, lower than the others. I can say his name too. Purchase the shape of him with my voice. Da-dee-da, a big, thirsty shape, the hum of him. When he touches me, he gives me his weight, the certainty of his grand voice. He appears above me, his face dividing when he smiles. I am sitting on the back of the horse, the warm, moving back, the tightening and slackening in the hinges of my hips, the rhythm beating for the pressure of the hide. I see clearly. I see my own unliquefied extremities. The length of my arm ends in a hand. The length of my leg ends in a foot. It is demonstrable. And for this rare and compromised moment, I am secure. I cannot be deposed. I am all the strong, unhurried length of me. I am Stella. And I'll read another one from the voice of Stella called The Swamp Song. Find it. This one was also the result of a really lovely day that I spent with Stella and my husband, actually on Amelia Island. And Stella rode in one of those little wagon things that you can pull behind a bicycle as we went through a Florida forest of oak trees and Spanish moss. Swamp Song. We pass through the swamp now. I hear the insects tramping. I hear the mind of the slow purr alligator. The alligator I see, and they do not. The xylophone planks of the boardwalk, the goose flesh soil, the wires that run down her flimsy bones. She is behind. I cannot see her, but I know the shape of her. He turns, a dark sallow against the darker gliding trees. There is the side of him. As he bicycles, drawing my chariot along, the bulk of him creaking, I hear the wheel turning on the wet ground. In between their bodies, the bicycles, the chariot, there is nothing but the gulp of the disappearing ground and the wires of her bones occasionally snapping. She is leaning down now. Okay, Stella, okay, let's pull the zipper up. And she gives me a big, costly peppermint smile. Up go the teeth of the zipper, out go the teeth of her mouth, down comes the rain. They are both, they would have me believe, at ease, so I must sing, stretching the syllables between them, nothing too sudden, they need order and routine. Occasional punches of flat sky, the drill of rain, vowels opening and falling, steady and velvety and low. The line of notes tethering me to her and me to him and back through all the wet, wet leaves to me. We're having an adventure, Stella, she says. And she says that because it is raining harder, because it is pouring down. Can they still hear? She turns her face to me. I produce each note carefully, and each note falls on the dark leaves and is smothered. I sing more loudly. The labor of trying to sing above the din, of trying to organize the notes. She bicycles into a tree. Yeah, I'm still here. But I know it is conditional. It's sweet, she's singing, but it is not sweet. It is necessary. Without the music, we would be just a little pinch of detail, a bicycle drawing a chariot, another bike dropped into the mud, the closing mud, the blink, and the beginning. And I want to read one more in Stella's voice because I like reading from my attempt to get under her skin. Upon arrival, a small consoling shape of skin, the back of his neck. I will look at it for hours as we drive. The weight of the seatbelt across my knees, the sudden appearance of my face in the metal larking up at me, the flowering teeth. I am buckled in, going on vacation with them. He puts on George Harrison, and the car smells rapturously of coconut. We are moving forward through the anticipation of the music, through the back of his neck, through the suitcases, their persistent, energetic weight, and the motion is compressed and installed in my new body, which is solid now and has just begun to hum. I can lick the music with my tongue, the high, starry notes of the guitar. If only we could keep traveling like this, in expectation, the reliable pressure of the seat, the compass of warm skin. If only we were not bound to arrive, the open door dropping my body into the sudden heat, people beating forward, sounds swooping and delighting, and I am afraid when I try to shiver through it. I will be cut by their voices and entombed in the great drowsy wobble sleeves of colour. The sounds are sharpening, my feet disappear on the uncertain ground, and I try to find myself, to pull myself together. All the organising bones, they are telling me to hurry. Oh, Stella, no, don't do that, don't fall to the ground. But I have to make sure the ground is not being deleted. And the tongues of my arms are being squeezed, and I can tell from their concentrated faces and their screwdriver hands that they do not understand. And I will fall into the cauldron of the light, and the seagull cries will scatter me, and still they do not understand, and still the light dismantles. And I'll jump to the final section, which is in the voice of the mother again. And this poem is called Clearing the Air. And okay, I was just making sure that I knew which one it was. Okay, Clearing the Air. I watch the children. The words rise above them, papier-mâché words, striped and feathered. And as they turn, for these are social children, a coin falls from a single pocket and the heads fall flawlessly together. So this is how such children move. I go on watching the children at the party, the easy way their bodies sway, skirts lifting, braids falling, the undulating arms recalling a shared, concealed knowledge. The air above the children crowding with the buzz and crackle of their words. Oh, you're thinking, it's a metaphor, but it isn't. When you've reached a certain pitch of desperation, metaphors are left behind. They take too long. Nothing is abstract anymore. My longing for speech, for the moment when words tear into sound, is too conspicuous. Every day, the words take on a different form. Today, a dazzle of birds above the streaming children. Tomorrow, a beetle hurt beneath the stone. This is not the way it used to be. Words then issued into the cleared air, burned free, awaiting them. My mind moved through orderly, dedicated syllables, moved on through the thin, flat, pacing hardness of the words onto the final resting thought. The longing changed that, roaring through, consuming all the pine cone words, the kindling of manageable thoughts. My daughter spoke once in long, ecstatic sentences, and then they were taken. And the longing works and works. It is a solid thing. It could be scored and eaten. I am gathering the words. I stack them. I bury them. I wait. And I think there's time for, just let me find a couple more. Every frivolous part. And what do you want? The mother asks, as the quiet devours the word, which was or might have been. What do you want to take so that the word remains? Take the virtue from mine eyes, take the shining of my hair, take the light that used to animate my voice. I am giving away every frivolous part. I have bargained with the source, whatever name we give the blank that calls back favors. The older I get, the more I believe in fate, in the sucking vacuum chamber of Greek, of twisted chances and characters who meet abysmal ends. Here with the wide-eyed fallen ones, Jocasta, Medea, Electra, you know you've fallen here. You know you're in the dark with them. They don't teach these anymore. There is no moral to slow. to sew into the leather of your shoe, paying for the right to keep the word, a handful of words gathered in the months, pressed between the sheets of glass, preserved above a windowsill. And this is the final one I'll read, which is also the final poem of the book, and I thought it was a good one to end on. Hope. Without hope, they say, you couldn't go on, but we do. In almost every house, we rise in the morning, we brush our hair and inspect the embers of the face. I used to wonder, with the malevolent accuracy of the average child, why we couldn't all go naked. The pleading root of the body, hungry and ineligible. We might have glimpsed it in the morning if we had time, which we didn't because we were busy gripping the button, pulling it through. By the time we had completed all the little ceremonies of dressing, we had forgotten what it was we didn't want to see. If you catch it for a moment, keep on cranking, winding up the costume, whatever form the allowance takes today. By the time we've brushed our hair and made the coffee, put on deodorant, and some of us pray, we've quite forgotten the terror galloping in the tenderness of each soft hand. Thank you. And I'm waiting for the other two poets to appear again. Okay, good. It's a little odd when I'm looking at a black screen. So I wanted to introduce Deborah Gorlin, who actually I just met. But she won the May Sarton New Hampshire Poetry Prize back in 2014 with her book, Life of the Garment. And she has a new book which has just come out and it's called Open Fire.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I want to thank everyone at my beloved Bowen, Publishing, Sarah, Henry, Joanne, and I'm so delighted to be reading in the company of two wonderful poets, Rebecca and Catherine. Just want to show you my beautiful book. I know Henry is here. It's the cover image is a detail from the Apocalypse tapestry, which were commissioned by Louis I of Anjou in 1373. And it's as I said, it's a detail from the biblical end times of the book of Revelation. As you can tell by the title and by the image, fire is in both its good and bad, its constructive and destructive properties is a central metaphor of this book. But I decided that given, I don't know how many of you are affected. I'm in the Northeast now. I spent some time in California, but I'm now on the Northeast. Currently, we're constrained by smoke from wildfires in Quebec, and there's been air quality alerts. And so I decided that I'd like to start the reading with a more salubrious element, at least for now, water, which is currently behaving. No torrential rains that I know of. The poem is called The Trouble with Rivers, and it's actually about the Connecticut River, which is just about 10 miles from where I live in Amherst, Mass. The trouble with rivers. Though seemingly dreamy, you are for real a body, a grand body of water, more muscle the wrestler than sculptor, pinning broad-shouldered earth to the mat. That's because of your workplace, spanked by sun, the herk and jerk of wind, slick mountains, the boss of you. All drop their freight upon your back, the tonnage of weather, rain, snow, hail that you must carry down along your length, a bloat 400-mile-long sofa hauling others, your joined waters swollen with your volumetric deposits and shelved alluvial libraries. Fluidity coerces choices, insists you flow or else. In better weather, you're more Maryland, voluptuous but still clingy, flutter in curves borderline with serious boundary issues. You have fun, but it's surface, a prim performance, balletic kayaks, boats, and skis skim the froth, frisson of fish. Sealed in their own skins, swimmers frustrate as they emerge, and you slip down them fast like silken panties, huddled dry. Unlike fire, satisfied after a good meal of forests or winds scheduled by air, you never rest in your earnest, ceaseless quest to describe and express yourself. Your lolling infant tongue teethes on dirt and pebbles, reaches for an opening, a mouth, a fixed source. All that's inside, murk, depths, movement, histories, sorrows, must flow in one direction only. Who are you then, but waters continued and continuing, unfathomable in all their endless nudities? A friend of mine mentioned that in this new book, I'm back to my old tricks, which is to say my favorite subject matters. And as Adrienne Rich says, your subject matter chooses you, you don't choose your subject, and so be it. And my favorite subject seem to be bodies, clothes, and death. And I thought I'd start with clothes and work to death. One of my inspirations, living in Amherst for as long as I have, has been Emily Dickinson. She's everybody's inspiration if you're a serious poet. I was absolutely fascinated by this white dress, that her legendary white dress that she wore presumably every day, in which her sister Lavinia, poor thing, had to iron. And so I wrote a poem about her dress. It's called Emily's Redress. When I die, from whatever causes, I hope to wear her famous white dress as a shroud of future rapture, an assumption of a prim, preordained heaven, eggshell of the life to come, chalet in a snowstorm. Its boxy pleats sewn down to the hem like pilasters, and its stoutly cut dimity cloth make for a secure architecture. Whatever affliction, cancer, heart disease, dementia, the weave of its embossed cords reassures me. I can trace with my finger its repeating pattern, though the chaos of a sickness spreads hither and thither. The fabric serves as a visual pacemaker for disrupted rhythms, a metronome for anxieties, and a scalloped lace edging openly worked could ease breathing if blocked or labored. Tiny windows as lookouts, escapes from the claustral hospitals. Even the flared cups hint at beginning wings. Those alabaster buttons, sentinels in their mineral intervals, flows off effluvia, presage tombstones. I follow the trail of even stitches, a map to the good death. All that wondrous white, folded upon white in a curtailed waterfall, paper creased in columns as if for grade school math tests, the dress under the auspices of Lavinia's iron, who would launder the haggard, unmade bed of us, our shame over dying, since in this state the hand of the fabric braces us, orders a harmony. Bach played out white harpsichord keys, an accordion of white music, mystic Disney. Feel me at the end of my life, the pulse of the dress fluttering like moths, the trillion molecular bowls in the cotton fields have clothed my bad dreams. If I can't be the jerk saints in their caskets or control the big belch of Buddhist birth or death, then let me languish in its dowdy forensics, really just a historic house dress like our Hawaiian muumuu, nothing glamorous about it except for our swooning legend making. If they'd allow me to borrow it once from the museum's display case, I promise I'd cut a figure, her remnant DNA pressed into my skin so that my wordless death would get as close as it could to true poetry. The middle section of the book is about women, obscure and famous, Greek mythological figures, seamstresses who die in sweatshops, horrendous deaths, saints, virgins, whores, fashionistas. It's kind of my violence and vision section. But the one I'd like to read tonight is about Lee Miller. I don't know if you know who she was. She was a very glamorous surrealist model, muse, American World War II photographer. She took a picture. This is an ekphrastic poem, which is a poem about a visual art. She was part of a troupe who broke into Hitler's apartment in Berlin in April 1945. I think it was on the very same day that he killed himself. They entered the apartment, and Lee Miller decided that she was going to take a bath. The day before, that she had just been at Dachau and at Buchenwald, she got into Hitler's bathtub, and her Jewish lover, who was a soldier, took this very famous photograph of her. So this is actually a photograph of her and not one that she took, but her photographs, if you ever have a chance to see them, are remarkable. This is called In Hitler's Bathtub. And the epigraph is, while the machine monster was dead, he'd never really been alive for me until today. And that's from Lee, that's a quote from Lee Miller, and it's from A Life, a biography of Lee Miller by Carolyn Burke. So here's the poem. She comes to him, hollowed, porcelain, cool, her photos still spooled inside her cameras, and all these souls at her disposal, this opportune trespass in his house, the soldiers giddily grabbing souvenirs, monogrammed silver, the cufflinks, the signed classics, touching what he had touched. She goes even further, his bathtub, and for her Jewish lover to photograph her there. No cheesecake, just the sights enough, only her arms and blonde head visible. She places her boots, recently dirtied from Auschwitz, squarely on the mat, bathing here, her act of ironic desecration, gesture to the showerhead, the man who made a holocaust of hygiene. Or an instance of her own demonic curiosities, lust for witness, and for unflinchingly recording his atrocities as she exposes herself willingly to his radioactive evil, as close to his body as possible, steeped in his forensics, his skin cells, his residual oils, risking contagion in a defiant brinkmanship, white witchcraft. But it's quite different when she steps in, the water hot, steamy, welcoming. His hands had been on that washcloth she uses now, his hands on this soap, the faucets. As suds glide down her back, gondola-like, she relaxes in a sort of swoon. She is bathing where he bathed, sits in the tub where he sat, bottom to bottom, and like a chair for Goldilocks, who found her equivalent there, it feels just right, even though it should feel wrong. It's not their sympathetic evil or hers as potential. Few can match him on that score. Instead, she feels him deeply inside her, who is anonymous now, manifold, only another living being with a body like her body, needing washing, not absolution, her like schools of fish, their fins like fans undulant, swimming the surface below her skin, bubbling each pore after a long absence, revivifying, the blood tingling as though returning to her limbs, restoring her to her own nakedness. She arises, flushed from the bath, towels off. This not pictured. For a brief time, known to herself, she is real, alive again. Oh, got more time than I thought. And while we're talking about death, I've written a lot of poems in the voice of abstraction, inanimate objects, trees, snow. And this is a poem that I wrote during the pandemic, which fortunately my case was actually, I was well and no one dear to me succumbed. Got a lot of writing done. And I hope that's the case for other writers. So this is a poem from the point of view of death, and it's called A Word from Death During the Pandemic. These days, when I feel distanced from ceremonies in honor of my undoings, a memory arises unbidden of a cliffside funeral in a tiny village, one of 5 linked by rocky paths through terraced hills where people, cheek by jowl, live in pastel houses, stacked like stucco puppies or snaggle-toothed ziggurats, comprising a sweet density, pressed as a corsage in my big book. It was yes. Oh, the name comes to me. Vernazza, Cinque Terre. Grandmother, all her relations had bled to gather there like a silk scarf, looking at that word, all her relations able to gather there like a silk scarf wreathed round the bed as I glued her body to match the harbor, clayed her limbs. They caressed her so lovingly that I was touched. Not with my help was she washed, dressed, and arranged openly in a coffin, propped upon pillow cushions and placed within a snow-globed hatchback, not some Cadillac purposed as a hearse, small enough for the single cobblestone street. Pedestrians, locals, and tourists hung curbside, leaned against buildings. Shopkeepers stepped out their doors to watch silently, see inside the car as it drove uphill to the ancient cemetery to allow the cortege to pass, led by the priest as mourners processed behind, shoulder to shoulder, in rows of no more than 4, 5, maybe 6. If there were children, some holding hands, others arm in arm, their eyes far away or cast downward. I could smell the fresh grave up ahead, awaiting us, the tang of its historical soil, warm as that August morning, oiled with uncured olives, bitter to the tongue, purpled with grapes, spiked garlic. All those briny marine and mineral seepages, fish bones, anchovies, oyster shells, limestone and shale, the taste like licking rocks, the terroir of the region, the land of these locally dead. By recalling these pleasures, I mean no disrespect. Please forgive me. I am not at my best. Let us hope for better times when, as a more gracious host than now, I may invite you to my long communal table for all of us to break bread. Okay, 2 more. Speaking of fire, this is a poem about preferred burials, and I am somebody who is not a fan, as they say, of cremation. Let me just find the poem. Page 22. against cremation. Why the penurious hurry, the stingy gifts? Give the dead their due and the elements. Why hasten the process with a swift twist of the dial, giving jets easy access to their ejaculate of fire like a jacuzzi for corpses? This rush to undress the body of itself, huddled negligee without satisfying foreplay. These ashes, spoon-fed to earth, are pure pablum when its teeth are known to grind. We deprive land of new properties, withhold from its magpie chemistry what scavenges for its next big nest. The grudge, the wind, that dog, a bone. I insist, wait the sky's blue hem even briefly. Make that creator of ours account for each of us. No generic dad or mom slipped through our fingers, smeared on our lips, spilled from a baggie. I demand nothing less than the slow ledger of our former bodies, a thorough accounting by the dirt and worms, every atom its given name, its former address, noted because never again in time assembled into this human being whose every asset will be invested in the earth. And the last one, I won't leave you, I'll leave you with a more hopeful poem. This is about my kayak. My husband made me a wonderful skin on frame kayak that weighs 20 pounds, and I can just throw it over my shoulder and paddle. It's called Naming the Boat. It's got an epigraph by Marie Howe. The things of the world don't need our language, not in order to become more than what they already are. Naming the boat. Its oval admits only one paddler who must comply with its narrow body, press hips against its side, squeeze legs into a kayak tight as Spanx, spray skirts sealing the deal. Just two were close buddies, its skin on frame like my own, though far lighter, vessel no heavier than a 25-pound toddler. I sling over my shoulder, put in, haul out of the water. Seated upright, I nestle inside its pod, a bean held in its husk, a foot inside a silken slipper. At a distance, we could be a new mythic creature. As the water scrolls its single moving page below us and takes us somewhere unfamiliar, bow pointed toward futures, just like human longing, eager for new destinations. When she asked her husband, who was paralyzed with ALS, if he wanted her to remove the feeding tube, he blinked the answer. Not yet. Still curious. What's that mineral taste in the wine? That strand of wind in my face, the word for this ray of sunlight on my cheek. I'll call my kayak, still naming. Okay, thank you. All right. Everybody, should we?
Okay.
I'm still on. Is everybody?
Yep, here we come. Well, thank you, all of you. That was really, really extraordinary. If anybody wants to turn on their camera and their microphone, they may do so. And if anybody has any questions, please, I mean, maybe just even physically raise your actual hand and ask a question. And I wanted to say that there is a link, there's some links in the meeting chat that for buying the books, the most recent books, and all the books are available on our website. But Open Fire and Receipt for Lost Words and Girl As Birch are all up there right now. So. I know, I think we should all clap.
Laughing.
Hooray. I know, there's so many people, I don't have enough squares. I mean, I don't have enough room for all the squares. It's really wonderful. Anybody have any questions? If you do, please, yeah. Leslie, can you turn your microphone on?
Yeah, that was a great reading all around. Deborah's the one I know the best and most recent, so I had a couple of questions about hers. For a while, I thought I was a fan of cremation, and then I learned it wasn't so good for the environment. I think your poem is a really, really important original poem on the subject. Has it been published besides in the volume?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where though.
Hmm.
Oh, wait.
Yeah,
It's a hot topic. And I'm just wondering though, my
Published in Trampoline.
trampoline,
Trampoline.
oh, thank you. That's good.
Anytime.
trampoline.
Duh.
So, but your vision of burial, is this a particular, I know there are many new things on the horizon to make burials more eco-friendly and to have your body be a nutrient to the soil, but that's not my understanding of how burials have generally worked. I mean, is there a preferred method that you have in mind?
I don't know, I'm still sort of thinking about it, but definitely something greener than cremation. And
Yeah.
for me, yes, of course, there's environmental concerns, but to be honest, just, you know, I mean, the poem says it. There's something that just seems to me violent about just, you know, heaping your body into an oven and you know, turning on the thermostat, you know.
I love the idea that it should be slow, because after all, we're big entities.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to say, I really admire your bravery in imagining the one about being in Hitler's bathtub. That must have taken a lot out of you. I don't know if you want to say anything more about what it was like to actually imagine that.
It was harrowing, but I was writing through another person, and I had a photograph that could somehow, you know, shield me from it. But yeah, I mean, you know, it was an act of impersonation, and it took me in a surprising direction. Yeah, that's all I can say.
It's unforgettable.
Thank you.
Maria.
Yes, I would like to say that listening to Catherine, we understand a mother's challenge trying to help a child and not being able to do. I think her poems are extraordinarily powerful and give us a really deep understanding of not only Stella's struggle, but her as a mother and as an individual is just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any more questions? Richard, can you turn your microphone on?
Got it. Quick question thank you all three. That was spectacular, really lovely. I was curious, Catherine, I think you said that the first poem in the second section was the first one you wrote in the book?
I think so. A horse, yes.
I was just curious if you could say a bit about the way the writing of the book developed into what for me read as a coherent through narrative, but I imagine was not written start to finish? How did that all play out?
The order changed a lot, actually. The first poem I wrote was either Horse or Ocean, but both of those poems were in the voice of Stella. And those both came to me when I was in a moment with Stella and my husband, and it was a moment of heightened joy because Stella loved riding on a horse then and loved and loves being in the ocean. So especially since we were going through a lot of difficult things, I really wanted to see if I could try to capture just what that felt like. And so it seemed natural to do it as if I was in Stella's body. And so I think that I wrote several of the poems that became the Stella section in the middle first. And then the other poems were written in a different order. I don't really remember it, but I know that I didn't arrange it into 3 sections until I'd almost finished it. And I can't actually remember when I wrote the first poem, the long poem. I can't remember whether that came early or whether I decided that I needed to do that to let the reader know what had happened. But I can say that I rearranged the order of the poems many times, obsessively, and I actually ended up with the final, when I sent out the manuscript for the last time, I had returned to the original order. So I kept shifting it and changing it, and then in the end I went back to the original order.
Other question.
Yes. Yeah, go.
Catherine, I meant to ask you, I don't know if I understood it correctly, were you really advised to take away the books, although Stella enjoyed working with the books? I do not understand that because children, I know I have a lot of grandchildren, they love books. Why would they advise that? If a child enjoys something, no matter what, why would they advise that?
Well, you may well ask, that's a good question, but that's what we were told by the speech therapist, actually. And since we were just in the beginning of this world, we took their advice. So yes, we were actually told to do that.
Wow.
I had a question for Rebecca. I was wondering, I read your novel recently, which was great. And when I was listening to the poems, they are, and I'm assuming that many of them are autobiographical. And there was something reminiscent of the novel in the sort of glimpses of a child living her life very much from the child's point of view and very lots of sensory detail. I wondered if you were writing the novel at the same time or whether one grew out of the other. Did you write the poems and then decide that you wanted to write a novel?
That's so interesting. I wrote the novel way before the poems and didn't know I was writing a novel. I mean, I wrote it in different sections. And I also, I've thought about reading sections of the poems with sections of the novel because I think they feel different, but they're sort of about the same subject. So no, I didn't think of them being connected in any way, though of course they are.
Right.
Yeah, it seems to me now in retrospect that the poems are much more detached from the straightforwardness of the novel. I don't know if that's what you thought.
Yes and no. It's hard to give a short answer because I think I see what you mean, but some of them did feel very rooted and concrete as well.
Thanks for asking.
Anybody else have a question or a comment or a greeting or? No. I hate to let you all go because this has been so fun. No last, anybody want to say anything?
You don't have to sound smart.
Well, I want to thank Bowen for
Sound
pub-
easy. Just ask, you can ask a dumb question.
I'm curious, how often do you organize this kind of events?
Once in a blue moon. But now that it's been successful, I think we'll do it more because it
Yeah, you should.
actually, I was a little, I think, well, one thing that's happened is I think Zoom has come a long way in the software, so it makes it a little easier to set these things up and not be so intimidating, but also we just haven't gotten our act together to do more of these, so perhaps now we will. And if you're on our mailing list or the e-blast list, then you'll get notices of this. Maybe too many, sorry. I think you have to keep reminding people, but we had 44, well, we had with four of us, the presenter, the poets and me, plus 44 people, so that's pretty good. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you for publishing these wonderful books, and it's a labor of love and they're all beautiful.
And we have some of our other authors. Let's see, Christian McEwen is there, and Desiree Alvarez and Richard Smith. And so, and Christian has a new book coming out in the fall, so look for that. So it's all go here at Bowen Publishing. We're small, but we're mighty.
Right.
Anyway, thank you all and have a good evening. It's the twilight is upon us and hopefully we won't have as much smoke tomorrow. We can get outside. So
Thanks everybody for coming. Really.
yes,
Yes,
so much,
thank you
everyone.
everyone for
Really
coming.
wonderful.
Thanks so much. It was a real pleasure.
Great reading.
Thank
you.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.